Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of this genetics presentation. A fun little thing I've got here. I've got Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species here from 1859 from the Harvard Classics edition. And I got a nice little quote from Charles Darwin to help us understand the importance of genetics. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Very interesting. Genetics and adaptation, etc., are all about responsiveness to change. I went ahead and set up what is called a dihybrid cross. I've got two heterozygous parents. Let me review what the traits are. So we've got big G here, represented by the green button, represents the allele for green leaves of a plant. The orange button here represents the allele, the recessive gene for orange leaves on a plant, but it is represented by little g. The black button represents the allele for black stems of a plant, and the blue button represents the recessive gene, and it is represented by little b. It is for a blue stem of a plant. So the capital letters represent the dominant allele, and the lowercase represent the recessive. And we're going to go ahead and look at all the different potential genotypes, and then we're going to come up with what's called a phenotypic ratio. This is a fun one. This is a phenotypic cross here. We're looking for a phenotypic ratio. So for the dihybrid cross, here we go. Let me explain. So instead of 4 squares as we had before when we were looking at the monohybrid cross, now we're looking at 16 potential variations with 2 traits that we're looking for. We're looking at leaf color, and now we're looking at stem color for this really interesting plant that we've created. So let's go ahead and start with what the father and the mother plants could potentially give. The top part will represent the father, and the side area here will represent what the mother will potentially give. This column here represents the father giving the allele for the dominant allele because he is heterozygous. He is heterozygous for everything. So his actual code, if you want me to lay it out for you, is big G, little g, big B, little b. So he can potentially give the dominant and the dominant. Now the mother is also heterozygous. So she, let me get a different blue here. That one doesn't look quite so blue. She also could potentially give a dominant and a dominant here. So if you follow my logic, the father could potentially give dominant for this allele, or this trait, this set here, this duo, this pair. So he can give this one and this one together, and the mother can do the same thing. But the father can also, in this column, give the dominant trait for leaf color, but the recessive trait for stem color. Same thing here for the mother. She could potentially give the dominant trait, the dominant allele for green leaf color, but she could give the recessive for stem color. So there you have it. Same thing here. The father could potentially give a recessive for the orange leaf, but a dominant, big B, dominant here for the, excuse me, sorry about the phone there, the dominant here for stem color. Same thing with the mother. She could give that potential combination. And both the father and the mother could both also potentially give the recessives. So these are all the potential combinations that the father and the mother can give. So let's put these aside and let's go ahead and look at the potential combinations. So if we start here, we're going to see that the father gives big G, or gives big G, and so does the mother. And the father gives big B, and the mother gives big B. So we have a full homozygous dominant everything here. Let me just use will a full note card work? Nah, full note card will not work. Let's do, this is going to be big G, big G, big B, big B. That is one potential offspring from these parents. Let's move our way across. We get a dominant from both parents. Okay. And we get a dominant and a recessive, excuse me, for stem color. So this one is going to be big G, oh, excuse me. Yep. Big G, and big B, little b. That is, remember, this is the genotype. This is what they are at the genetic level. Moving forward, we get a dominant for leaf color and a recessive for leaf color. So the recessive comes from the father, the dominant comes from the mother. We get a dominant for stem color with black and a dominant for stem color for black here too. And so that potential offspring, these are all potential offspring, mind you. That potential offspring is big G, little g, big B, big B. This over here, the father is going to give recessive, but the mother is going to give dominant. So this one's going to be truly heterozygous for both. So that's going to be big G, little g, and big B, little b. Blue. Right. Okay. Okay, so this is where we are with genotype right now. Let's move down. We're going to go with the father and the mother. They're going to meet right here. Okay, so it looks like both parents give the dominant. Got to use some small buttons. I hope I don't run out of green. So they both give the dominant, and father gives the dominant for stem color. The mother gives the recessive. Okay, so this one is big G, big G, big B, little b. Okay. And this next one looks like the father and the mother both give the dominant allele here for leaf color. So green and green, big G, big G. Looks like the father is giving the recessive and the mother is also giving the recessive. So let's show this here. So that's big G, little b, little b. Moving on, it looks like we have a dominant from the mother, big G, and a recessive from the father, little g. And we have a dominant from the father, big B, and a recessive from the mother. So we're going to go big G, little g, big B, little b. Okay. Moving on here, continuing to build our genotypes, we get a big G from the mother and a little g from the father. Always writing the dominant first before the recessive. And it looks like we get a recessive from the mother and a recessive from the father. So that's little b, little b. So here we go. Okay. And little b, little b. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Moving down, we are halfway done. Looks like now we have the recessive little g with the big B. So this mother has, she's got the allele here for the orange leaves, but also the black stems with the father with the 2 dominant here. So that's going to be big G, little g, and big B, big B. Big G, little g. Okay, moving on. Where do they meet? The father gives the dominant, the mother gives the recessive for leaf color, again. And this time the mother gives dominant for stem color, but the father gives recessive for stem color. So we're looking at, oh, excuse me. Okay, let's look at big G, little g, big B, little b, an potential offspring that is fully heterozygous for both, just like the parents. This one's identical to the parents. Okay, the next one will be, ooh, this is interesting, little g, big B with little g, big B. So let's write this one down, see what this one looks like. This one is little g, and big B, big B. That's interesting. So this one's genotype looks like this. Interesting. And now we're going to go down here for recessive, both from the father, a recessive but a dominant from the mother. So the father is giving a recessive for leaf color, and so is the mother. So that's little g, but the mother's giving a dominant, big B, and the father's giving little b. So we got 2 recessive for leaf color, and then we've got a dominant and a recessive for stem color. Okay, we are on our last row. We're in the home stretch. So let's go. We've got little g, I'm sorry, I gotta go here. Big G, little g. Okay. Big G, little g. And nope, hold on. Father gives yes, that's right, and then black and blue, that's right. Okay. This one looks like it's going to be fully heterozygous, identical to the parents as well. Big B, big. That's that one up. Big G, little g, big B, little b. And remember, kids, this is a tool. The Punnett square is a tool to really look at genotypes and phenotypes. Remember, genotype is what you are at the genetic level, and phenotype is how that is expressed through the interaction of the genotype with the environment. So here, the father is giving a big G, the mother's giving a little g. The father's giving a little b, and the mother is also giving a little b. So, big G, little g. Okay, and little b, little b. Okay, we got 2 left. Looks like the father is giving a recessive, and the mother's giving a recessive, so it's little g for the orange leaves, and it looks like we've got a dominant big B and a recessive little b for the stem. Okay. Okay, and we're down to our last one. It looks like this one is interesting because the father and the mother are both giving their recessive, full recessive potential combinations. This is little g, and little b. Okay, so thankfully I had enough green. I was a little worried there for a minute, but I made it. Didn't need them for this last one. All right, so these are all the potential different genotypes that we've got going on here, okay? Notice that many of them are the same. A lot of them, actually, that's not true at all. Most of them are slightly different in ways. But if you notice a pattern here, look at here, 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 and here. You'll see each of these genotypes is identical to the parents. There's only one fully dominant, or the full, homozygous for the dominant genes here, and only one full homozygous for the recessive alleles there. So we've got a pattern here. Oh, there's another pattern that I see. Look at this. If you go this way, you'll see the dominant. Now you have dominant, full recessive. Here you have full recessive, full dominant. And here you have full recessive, full recessive. So we've got a pattern going here with the offspring identical, potential offspring identical to the parents, and then you have this interesting, look at the colors, just looking at them, you can see the pattern there. So these are the genotypes that we've got here. But what we're interested in is how these are going to be expressed in the offspring themselves. Excuse me for a second. Okay, so how are they going to be expressed in the offspring themselves? Well, this is where the magic happens. This is where we start stacking the buttons to see what the phenotype looks like. So remember the rule. When you do phenotype, you have to put the dominant over the recessive because that's what actually happens. The dominant trait masks, or the dominant allele masks the recessive allele, and you get the observed phenotype. In this case, the green leaves is going to mask orange leaves, and the black stem is going to mask the blue stem. So here we go. I will start, and I will go down through each one. So this is what they're going to look like. Always using the dominant to mask the recessive to get your phenotype. Green will always cover orange. I need a bigger green there. That's not going to work. Green will always cover orange. Black will always cover blue. Keep going the way that I went. I need a bigger one for that. Make sure I cover up my And when you have double recessive, it doesn't matter. So what I've got here are my phenotypes. So excuse me while I remove my genotypes. This is where the fun comes in. Let's look at our phenotypes. So, how many plants with green leaves and black stems do we count? There's one here that's green, black, green with black, green, black, green, black, green, black. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. This got a, adding down here, same thing. Green, black, green, black, green, black. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have another 2 here, green, black, green, black. That looks like 9. Okay, so I have 9 that are going to express green leaves and black stems. All right, so remember this, that, and then these 2 here. Yeah, it's like a triangle. You've got this one here. This one expresses green leaves but blue stem, green leaf, blue stem, green leaf, blue stem. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. I've got another 3 down here that will express orange leaves but a black stem, 1, 2, 3. You can see that. And lo and behold, there's only one potential offspring out of 16 that will express orange leaves and a blue stem, because there is no masking of the recessive allele by the dominant one in this case. So this is what's called a phenotypic ratio. So this dihybrid cross gives us the phenotypic ratio of 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. This is how we observe them in nature. So kids, the fun part about this work is that Punnett squares, you can find them online. You can explore even more complicated versions of this. I've actually done 3 traits with students before. You actually have to have, I believe, 64 squares for that one. That one takes a while. One time we did it with paper clips. It was pretty intense. It was a lot of fun. But it does teach you about genetics and about alleles and about dominant and recessive, genotype and phenotype. Very important things to learn when we study genetics in the study of biology. So this was the presentation, part 2 on genotypes and phenotypes. I hope you enjoyed it. I really love this work. I love this presentation simply because it shows that phenotypes are what we observe and genotypes are what we are at the base level. And when I use the buttons to cover up, with the dominant covering up the recessive, you can visually see how these potential offspring are going to express this genetic code in the environment through their phenotype. So thank you all for paying attention. I know it took a while. I know I had to break it into 2 parts, but I really appreciate your attention, and thank you very much.